This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob gladly wears a meat dress. Eve is glad she's not moving to Idaho. And Tim is glad for some new online tools. I am your host, Tim Farley. Brian Gregory is not here this week, so I'm filling in.
Oh, sorry. That wasn't a joke. Okay, never mind. Usually that's where the joke goes.
It's true.
And here we are. We are live. If you are watching us on Wednesday night, so you can interact with us through Twitter via the hashtag Virtual Skeptics or via the Q&A app if you're on Google+. Ask us questions, point out things we're getting wrong, like the number of the episode of the show, which I got wrong earlier today. But let's introduce our panel. First is Bob Blaskiewicz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and contributor to Skepticality. And then there is Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities, and also a contributor to Skepticality and Insight at skeptic.com. And there is me, Tim Farley. I created What's the Harm? I'm a blogger at SkepTools and Insight at skeptic.com. And I'm on Skepticality, and here I am.
There you are.
So what's up, guys? Is everyone frozen tonight?
Pretty much.
Well, we're inside.
Most of the U.S. is covered with 6 feet of snow, it seems like.
Yeah, California's just laughing at us.
Yeah, as usual.
Well, we're not on the East Coast. It's actually been a mild snow winter in Wisconsin.
Ah.
So.
Well, that's good. We're about to maybe get our first snow in Atlanta, first actual snow in Atlanta tonight. Maybe. We'll see.
So we can expect the highway to be completely jammed?
And the whole city shut down.
We're pretty good at handling overnight ones. I thought we were heading into doing another one of those today because there was no snow in the morning and it was supposed to arrive at like 2 in the afternoon, and it's like, oh no, this is going to happen again.
Oh my
and it
gosh.
did arrive at 2 in the afternoon, but it wasn't much, and I think everybody got home. Now, further north in Georgia, it might be terrible. I don't know. I'm just talking about what's in Atlanta. So I do not have any monitors behind me, but Bob has a monitor behind him. So if you want to try to guess what that is going on that monitor behind Bob, you can do that. But meanwhile, I will ask the trivia question. Hopefully this one will not be super easy or super hard.
Just right.
It should be just right. It's we've kind of been hitting a lot of 100th anniversaries lately, just because that's kind of the thing. And there's one coming up in May, on May 12th, 1915, 100 years ago this year. A woman by the name of Anna May Foy got a new type of license in Kansas that had just been introduced. She became the first person in the U.S. officially licensed by a state to do what?
I hope it's kill.
So that's your Virtual Skeptics trivia question. Try to answer that, and I will try to pay attention to the comments and stuff and see who gets it right. I'm trying to make sure I have that up and running over here, except my other computer's being slow. So, first up to talk to you tonight is Bob.
Yay, me. Okay. So this week some rich people gathered in Los Angeles to reward themselves for a job well done. Yes, I'm talking about the Academy Awards. I didn't watch because I hadn't seen like any of the movies. And
it's boring.
And it's dull. And I don't care about the fashion, and I'm not a celebrity watcher, so, there was nothing in it for me. But the tradition of all the podcasts I listen to, I thought that I would do a Hollywood-themed weird news roundup. All right?
Do we get a gift bag? worth $200,000?
I have a very, very inappropriate joke to make, and I'm not going to do it because I want to keep this show going.
And not be stabbed in the eye?
When I get home, yeah, that'd be nice.
There were at least, did you notice there were at least 2 pieces of significant woo-woo in that gift bag?
No.
Oh, yeah.
One was a $20,000 astrology reading, and the other one was some sort of light that shines on you that helps you lose weight, an LED weight loss thing.
Are you kidding me?
Because that's what we know most actresses in Hollywood need. Lose more weight.
You know. Wow, and the $20,000 astrology reading is just worthless.
But so. Just another little bit of news. Unless you're some member of Parliament in Britain who thinks astrology could be used to sort out the NHS.
I saw that.
That was
yeah, people are just so disappointing. Anyway, but first up, I'd like to talk about Scientology. If you could bring up the first image, the Hollywoodiest cult out there, and it clearly made a fine showing on the red carpet this week. There we go. There it is, making a showing. Licking Scarlett Johansson or whatever.
Oh my God, that was so creepy.
Yeah, he's a creepy dude.
But at least it wasn't his only creepy thing of the evening.
Yeah, he just
he was consistent.
Yeah. So this week, documents were unearthed following a Freedom of Information request to the FDA for files related to litigation directed at L. Ron Hubbard at a time in the 60s when he'd been making health claims for his e-meter, which measures electrical resistance directly, and indirectly it measures gullibility and the size of your bank account. An unnamed researcher and correspondent with the Underground Bunker, using the Muckrock website and FOIA tool, he discovered that an investigator for the FDA named George D. Tilrow had, over the course of 8 years of litigation, secured a fairly complete record of L. Ron's educational history. People knew that he'd left high school, but the reasons why were obscure, but not anymore. The most perfect man who ever lived, L. Ron Hubbard, dropped out of high school.
Wow.
Rather a lot. And so, we'll look at a couple of his report cards. He seemed to move around a lot when he was in high school. So if you could bring up the first image. The first one is, where is that one from? Yeah, it's from Helena High School, where you can see that he got, in Spanish, he received a grade of 22%. He got, well, this explains something later on in his life. When he inadvertently bombed Mexico, he thought
wasn't it inadvertent?
Yeah, inadvertently bombed Mexico. He thought it said Japan.
Yeah.
So it's language skills, people. They pay off. Or you'll start an international incident. He also failed French. And let me see.
I like that there's not even a score for French. Just fail.
Fail. I know. It just says fail. Second semester, fail.
No, physics would be...
Physics is 66. That's not a pass either.
Right. Nor is English 4 is fair. It's fair.
Below, it's fair.
Yeah.
He just got by, and I think anybody who's read anything he's written will realize that that's accurate.
Well, it works fine if you sort of make up your own freaking vocabulary.
Vocabulary, meanings, and mythology to back it? Sure. So, if you look at the report that accompanies it, it says repeatedly that he was dropped May 11th, 1928. Not that he left, not that he got itchy souls and needed to go
Politely
wander.
asked to leave.
No, dropped like a uncomfortable turd. Anyway, I paint word pictures. So next, we see. So that was in 1928. The next year, he tried to join the Naval Academy, which was apparently his father's dream for L. Ron. And not only did he bomb Mexico, he bombed the entrance exam. According to the investigator, Mr. Hubbard failed to pass regular mental examination for midshipman, 17 April 1929, making the following marks. And you got to realize that 2.5 is required here. So in geometry, 1.2, algebra, 0.0. Yeah, English 3.2, U.S. history 2.5, ancient history 2.5, and physics 1.8.
Well, maybe his math was so bad he didn't realize how badly he'd done.
That seems completely possible. And this last bit was known already, but I thought that could you bring up the next slide?
Yep.
Okay, so the next slide, this is him at George Washington University. So this is him in college. And if you look at his grades, his chemistry is not great in his first year. He fails German, fails German, French, and Spanish. That's impressive. At his calculus, he failed calculus. He did not do well with electricity. And Physics 14, modern physical phenomena, molecular and atomic physics, he got an F, which is funny since he claimed to be one of the first nuclear scientists. No, you weren't. You were the smelly kid who bit people in the back of the room. That's who you were.
It was a bomb.
Yeah. So what can you do? So that was Revelations in Scientology. It's amazing. Some people get all the breaks. I have no idea how he got as far as he did. But speaking of failures, the Razzies were handed out this week. And by far the biggest winner-loser was Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas, a movie that was actually made. It was about cramming Christ back up Christmas, and it took the awards for Worst Screenplay, Actor, and Screen Combo, Worst Picture, Screenplay, Actor, and Screen Combo, which the last one went to Cameron and his ego.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
Well deserved. All right.
Terrible.
And,
just awful.
Oh, very, very bad. Right? So, and speaking of people who will never be near the Oscars, Rob Schneider made waves. If you bring up the next images, yes, next one.
Let's see.
God, that picture of him and the candy cane is just ridiculous.
And a little violent, like he's trying to kill Christmas.
Yeah. Thrash it mercilessly. And it is not BioShock, I should mention. Okay, so this ding-dong, Rob Schneider, he made waves last week when he called the office of California Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, who co-sponsored a bill that will close a loophole that allows parents to claim personal belief vaccine exemptions for their children. This is the type of thing that has led to the current resurgence of measles in California. And according to the Assemblywoman's Facebook page, and I quote, "So, we received a phone call from Rob Schneider today where he threatened my staff that he would spend a lot of money against me because of my co-authorship of a bill to increase vaccine rates. When I called him back, he was actually much nicer to me, but let's be honest, that is 20 minutes of my life I'll never get back arguing that vaccines don't cause autism with Deuce Bigalow, male gigolo." Yes! And, okay, so basically what we're saying is tremble before the mighty Rob Schneider political machine. Ooh. And it looks like that bill's going to pass anyway. We have a link to that. And speaking of not having a good transition, because Eve advised me against the one that I made, Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina was recently in the news when she came came out in favor of steam cleaning.
Warm, soggy vagina.
And you wouldn't let me use the C word, Eve.
That's right.
Warm, soggy vagina is just fine.
No.
Right? Okay, fine.
It's accurate.
I'm with Eve on this.
Okay, that's fine. I was using it in the British sense.
Yes. No, not even that.
Okay, so she came out in favor of steam cleaning her girly bits, saying that it cleaned out her uterus, which is physically impossible, and apparently nobody's ever told Gwyneth Paltrow to her face that she should just shut the hell up. And then, speaking of other people who abuse their vaginas, big thigh shill Suzanne Summers was ultimately, this week, selected for a spot on Dancing with the Stars. Regarding her vagina, she is known for injecting estrogen into her vagina. Is it every morning? I think that's what it is. In order to trick her body into...
blonde behind, I think, in the slides.
Oh, yeah, if you put the next slide. Okay, so that's Gwyneth Paltrow getting her vagina steamed.
Apparently. Oh, there's Suzanne.
Suzanne Summers with the Thigh Master for shapely buns and thighs.
She seems to have it in the wrong place.
Well, she's not the smartest person. She I've gotten into a Twitter tickle fight with her talking about Brzezinski. She wrote about him in her book. And I said, well, what about all the people who didn't make it? And she said, I prefer to look at the successes. Well, then, shut up. You know? So anyway, she...
it's easier because there are fewer of them.
Yeah, I know. It's much... You can be comprehensive that way. You know? But... So she is notorious for her attempt to...
Shooting things into her poozle.
Shooting things into her poozle and trying to stay young forever or die in the attempt.
And there's one time when she was in the hospital and she wrote this thing about how terrible the doctor was because he accused her of using hormones, and she totally doesn't. She just uses bioidentical.
Well, it was worse than that. They
hormones.
They said they found that she had these growths all over her body, inside her body, and it looked like her breast cancer had come back. They asked her if she was on hormones or steroids, and she said no. And then so they diagnosed it and they were going to put her on chemotherapy and do the whole thing because she didn't know that bioidentical was actually just identical, right? What it turned out that she was on such a high dose of steroid. Hold on. She was on such a high dose of steroid that...
Sneezy.
I know, something doesn't want me to finish the sentence. She was on such a high dose of steroid that she'd suppressed her immune system to the point that she'd contracted a fungus. And the only other people who really get funguses are AIDS patients.
Weird.
So she had, and then she blamed the doctors for misdiagnosing.
You mean that kind of fungus?
Huh? Right.
People do get.
Yeah, I mean systemic fungal infection.
Right.
Yes. So she is a danger to herself, and I fully expect her to ruin herself when she tries exercising on live TV because of all the things she's on. But that is the Oscar edition roundup. Dear God.
She's about to squish her head, isn't she?
I don't know. Yeah. It's pretty dense and pretty large. And
nice teeth, though.
That is if you can't say anything nice about someone, just say they have nice teeth.
Okay, just looking to see if we had any questions. I see some trivia answers. Ellie was asking if she's here, and she is here. Yes, you are here, Ellie. And no, it wasn't drive a car. So, that leads into me, and I'm going to just do a quick segment. If you read my blog, this might be a little bit repetitive, but I just wanted to go over some stuff that I hadn't talked about on the show, but I blogged about recently in the last 2 weeks. Basically 3 online tools that were kind of cool, at least I thought so. The first one, or the first 2, are fact-checking websites. What did I do? There are a ton of fact-checking websites, and I've been kind of following the development of all that, and it's kind of an interesting outgrowth of sort of the collapse of newspapers, as they has been this need to do sort of outsourced fact-checking, and also just kind of the degeneration of the political environment. And so there are like 89 different fact-checking sites just for politics and journalism and stuff, and fundamentally things like Snopes were fact-checking sites before it became this sort of regular thing.
Hipster fact-checking.
Now we kind of need a fact-checking aggregator, because there's so many fact-checking sites. If you want to get a fact check on something, there's a bunch of different places you might want to work. Well, it turns out that the folks at Sense About Science, which is a cool nonprofit over in the UK that was involved in Simon Singh's case and stuff like that, has built one. They built one called Fact Check Central, and it's as you would expect, it's kind of UK oriented. So you can see in this screenshot, it's got some fact checks from the NHS site and factcheck.co.uk, I think, is kind of the general politics fact check. So they didn't, even though it's Sense About Science, they didn't limit it just to science stories. It's any sort of fact check, and you can get a complete stream there. So you can kind of have, for at least your UK fact checking needs, there's now kind of a one-stop shopping for that site. And the other one is one of the political fact-check sites here in the United States is factcheck.org, probably one of the older ones. And it is, they decided to add basically a science page. They call it SciCheck. And there's so many science-oriented things in politics now with climate change and measles and vaccine denial and these things that relate to policy. That are fundamentally scientific questions. They decided to have a special page where they deal with that. They got a special grant from a particular foundation to do this. And so for all your science-based needs, check that out over on factcheck.org. Now, the actual tool that you can use yourself that I wanted to talk about is one that I talked about in all my screens just went blank over there. In a different form. That's really helpful.
It's a very relaxing screen.
Sorry, my screen just locked over here. Way back in Virtual Skeptics number 7, I think, I talked about a tool called ForMatch, and what it was for was verifying whether or not you have a photo that's unaltered. And it's good for things like ghost photos and Bigfoot photos and any kind of photo where you suspect some foolishness may have gone on, right? And at the time, ForMatch was an interesting thing, but it was an expensive tool. You had to have Photoshop. It was a plug-in for Photoshop, so you had to buy Photoshop, which is kind of expensive, and then you had to buy ForMatch, which was fairly expensive. It was several $100s. So it wasn't something your average skeptic could run out and do. Well, I guess they had trouble selling the product in general, so it turns out last year they converted it to a web-based thing, and somehow I missed the announcements. It's actually been around for most of a year now. And this is a ghost photo. I decided to test it out, and this is a ghost photo from Sri Lanka that was posted on Richard Wiseman's blog. He doesn't do it that much anymore, but he used to do a thing where people would send him ghost photos, and he would post them on his blog and just sort of have his commenters kind of kick around, all right, you think this is real? Do you think it's not? And the ghost here is in that window behind the fellow standing there. And his commenters made short work of this one, because if you follow ghost photos, that ghostly woman in the window is apparently one of those standard memes that gets stuck into every photo. So it's like ghost number 7.
Like from an app?
Yeah, it's from an app, or it's from some other thing or something. And people.
What about the big red arrow?
Yeah.
The big red arrow I put in.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so he had people would send him these photos, so he had the photo. And what this tool does is you upload the photo, and you have to have the original, not a resized web-based version or the one that was on Twitter or whatever. You got to have the file that came off the camera, the original photo, which, if you're investigating a photo, you're probably going to want anyway, because if you know anything about digital photos, there is usually some extra what they call metadata in the photo. So there might be GPS coordinates. It'll tell you what kind of camera it was, what the exposure was, and that's all very useful in investigating whether or not a photo is real. So you want the original photo. Well, what this tool, and it's not called Formatch anymore, it's called Is It True? They got to give it a funky name like Flickr or whatever. And basically it tests to see whether or not the photo is in fact a legitimate camera original. And here's the page. I took that photo off of Richard Wiseman's site, the original, and or at least the most original one he had, and uploaded it. And sure enough, you can see it shows yellow. It says potential file modification. And if you can't read the text down near the bottom, it says our forensic tests suggest this file has been resaved since its original initial capture. Because this file is not a camera original, it is possible that it was modified. And of course, it was modified. Somebody put that meme in the window. And it also, as you can see, it doesn't have a location, it doesn't have a capture date, it doesn't have a camera ID. So this is clearly a doctored photo that came out of Photoshop or something. And sometimes it'll even say, this was saved by Photoshop right there in the thing, so you'll know.
Well, question, if you go online and there's a photograph, I did something today where I saved something that had been through Facebook, saved it to my computer, and then tried to run it through an error rate analysis. Is that the right?
that can be problematical, because all those services like Facebook are going to resize the photo. When they upload it, because first of all, they don't want to. They're trying to save space, and they're not going to store the original, 4K by or whatever the thing was. So they resize it to a more reasonable screen size, and they only save that. So you never get the original file. Now, in some cases, you can get the original file, like on sites that cater to photographers, like Flickr and stuff. Depending on the settings, sometimes it'll let you download the original file. The point of this site is that not only can anybody upload these photos, but you end up with a nice little short URL. So the idea is that if you were actually a ghost hunter and you wanted people to trust you, you could upload your photos directly to the site and then share them with the Is It True URL and say, look, I'm not fooling you. This came right off the camera. And in fact, Is It True also has an iPhone app. To solve the problem of if you aren't careful about how you upload it, the file might get resized in that process too. So their iPhone app makes sure. So if you are a ghost hunter or a UFO photographer, then you can upload your photos yourself. And you can annotate them and put a caption on the photo to explain what it is and whatever you want to do. Let me show the other photo that I tested, which oddly enough was taken claims to have been taken in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Oh, and, I remember that demon alpaca.
Yeah. This was, I don't know, there's some alpacas there. I don't know if this is a petting zoo or a carnival or what it is, but there's this, again, I've put the red arrow in. There's this ghostly woman in the background, and of course, in typical fashion, the person who took the photo swears, that woman was not there when I took the photo, it only showed up later. But the alpacas and the girl in the foreground left appear to be, pretty solid, and the woman that the arrow's pointing to, you can see the background, you can see the truck through her head. So why
Right.
is she transparent? Well, before I tell you what the answer to that is, I uploaded this photo, and there's a reason I picked this photo.
Is
This
the answer
photo,
ghost? The answer is going to be ghost, isn't it?
It's not
uh,
ghost.
Oh.
no, the answer is not going to be ghost.
I'm gonna say
This photo does actually appear to be a camera original, and in fact, you can see down there in the lower corner it says Canon Power Shot. It tells you the exact model of camera and what date it was. And if you looked deeper at the file, you could see what they call the EXIF data, and you can get all sorts of other data on the picture. So it does appear that this is the file that came off the camera. But one of the things that the commenters on Richard Wiseman's blog determined.
Can I say
that,
something?
Sure.
I think is it a reflection?
No, that's a good guess though. What it is if you look in the EXIF data of that file, you find out that the exposure time on that picture was 1 full second, and the flash was on, as you can obviously tell. So that woman walked through the photo and happened to be there right when the flash hit, but kept moving. And so the flash picked her up, but the rest of the time when the flash wasn't flashing, she wasn't there, so it also picked up the background in the 1 full second exposure. If you're not familiar
That's
with
cool.
cameras, 1 full second is a really long time to have the lens open.
That is a remarkably still alpaca. No.
Yeah. So that was the explanation of that photo, and it explains why it is actually a camera original. So if you do anything with... Now, obviously, all this does is tell you whether or not the picture is as it came from the camera. It doesn't tell you if it's modified, how it might be modified. And if it came from the camera, it doesn't tell you what the explanation is. You'd still have to do an investigation. The interesting thing about this is it actually doesn't even really look at the picture itself that much. It's really looking at the file and how it's stored in the file. And these guys, one of the guys who helped develop this used to be the vice president in charge of, ironically enough, Photoshop at Adobe, and spent 15 years working on Photoshop. So he knows the intricate details of these file formats and how Photoshop mucks them around. And so they can detect, without actually having to analyze the photo in detail, they can detect, okay, this is a picture that came off of a power shot and wasn't tampered with. If it had been, then this would have been changed. So it's kind of a cool little thing. It's a very specialized use. It only answers one question, but it answers that one question really well, and then you can proceed with your investigation instead of wasting time on a photo that somebody photoshopped for you.
The one we were looking at today, the one that I tried to see whether or not, and it didn't look like it was it didn't look like that it had any obvious alterations or anything, but it had come from the Daily Mail. I don't know if you saw this, but it was the Gray Lady.
Oh no, I missed that one.
Okay, yeah, and so there's a kid.
The Gray Lady.
Right, the Gray Lady of some blah 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 court. It's some palace. Okay, so they're taking a tour. These two kids, and
I did see this photo.
And then there was that picture of the grayness just hovering there, and it's this weird kind of not really, kind of amorphous form.
It's kind of center right in the photo.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a really cool photo. And it looked Photoshop, but it didn't, have any obvious, in the error rate or anything. Didn't see anything there, and someone had just the most awesome explanation that it was a panorama shot that had smooshed someone into this weird,
right?
It was a beautiful explanation. I loved it, and the paranormalists they couldn't accept it. Oh well. Yeah, it could be, but you make fun of paranormalists when they say could be. Yeah, but this is simple.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I've never looked at a panoramic photo off of a smartphone. But I imagine there's probably some information in the EXIF that would tell you that it was.
It was
shot
original, yeah.
there. But yeah, you can get really weird results if someone moves while you're doing the pan.
Like
I saw
two-legged
one where
cat.
there was a baby that was crawling in the same direction that the person was moving. So you ended up with this giant, long baby. It's very
so
weird.
funny. It's so funny, yeah. And well, what they were saying is that if you look at the angles, that you're looking at more than a 90-degree angle sweep here by looking at the corner of the wall, and so it, and you know what? I have to agree. It looks really good. Yeah. But it was just interesting to see how that idea just couldn't enter into the head of the paranormalist. It was just.
Yeah.
It was too good an explanation for them.
Yeah. Yeah, so is it true? It's a good tool for these type of things. If you can get the camera original, get it up on Is It True, and at least you can answer the question, all right, it hasn't, like for this picture, you could lay aside, it wasn't photoshopped. It came off the camera this way.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's figure out why it looks this way.
Yep.
All right, well, that's all I've got for this week, and Nathan put a red arrow in the background of a screenshot.
But was it a ghostly red arrow?
Yeah, apparently he's decided my head back there is a ghost. Yeah.
Interesting.
How ironic. A ghost photo right while we were talking about ghost photos.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Okay, Eve, you're up.
Well, welcome to the Week in Christian Lunacy, Idaho edition. Yesterday,
Is there going to be your own private Idaho joke at some point?
No.
Well, fix that.
Consider that
Yeah.
Yesterday, the Kootenai, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but we'll just be lucky if I don't start calling it the Hootenanny. But the Kootenai County Central Republican Committee, seen here, first slide, was set to vote on a measure declaring...
They're a good bunch.
Yeah. They were set to vote on a measure declaring Idaho to be a Christian state in order to support what the proposal calls the Judeo-Christian bedrock of the founding of the United States. Now, I should reveal right away that by early this afternoon, I wasn't able to find out how the vote went. Of course, even if the measure passes, it would have absolutely no practical effect whatsoever. It's the county committee of a political party, not the state legislature. Plus, there's that U.S. Constitution.
Schmonstitution.
That pesky thing.
Still, it's off-putting, if funny, precedent. The measure calls for Idaho to be formally, and this is a quote, formally and specifically declared a Christian state. The measure alludes to the Declaration of Independence, which vests ultimate authority in God.
Isn't the Declaration of the Islamic State a closer analogy?
Whatever. Of course, while the Declaration is an important document in the history of our country, it isn't the foundation of our government and our legal system. That the document that is slightly less gaudy. We'll get to that in a moment. The author or authors of the proposal feel the measure is necessary because, and again, this is a quote, and you'll want to pay close attention to this. The Christian faith has come under increasingly more strident attack in and by public institutions, resulting in its ejection in word and physical symbols from schools, curricula, sporting events, and public discourse. Oh my God, the horrible persecution. Damn you, U.S. Constitution! How much would you pay for all this irony? But wait, there's more irony.
There's always more.
Yeah. According to a Reuters story, supporters say the measure echoes the Christian principles espoused by early U.S. presidents such as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, and that it has added significance at a time when Christians are subject to persecution in countries such as Syria, where it is not the dominant religion.
Okay.
So, aside from providing an example of what can happen in countries with an established religion, I'm not sure what Syria has to do with Idaho. Although actually Syria doesn't exactly have a state religion, but they kind of do. It's complicated and really not relevant. So while Syria is a red herring, or Syria as a red herring is fun, the reference to the founding fathers and Constitution framers, Jefferson and Madison, is just precious. According to my in-depth internet research, Madison was largely responsible for the content and form of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And in case there are any members of the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee watching, let me remind you how the First Amendment begins. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Okay, maybe Madison et al. Were kind of careless in their wording of the First Amendment, and what they really meant to say was, this is a Christian nation, everyone else up against the wall. So, did Madison ever say anything else about the separation of church and state? Why, yes. Yes, he did. Here are some examples. The civil government, though bereft of everything like an associated hierarchy, possesses the requisite stability and performs its functions with complete success, whilst the number, the industry, and the morality of the priesthood and the devotion of the people have been manifestly increased by the total separation of the church from the state. Strongly guarded as the separation between religion and government in the Constitution of the United States, the danger of encroachment by ecclesiastical bodies may be illustrated by precedents already furnished in their short history. Every new and successful example, therefore, of a perfect separation between the ecclesiastical and civil matters is of importance, and I have no doubt that every new example will succeed, as every past one has done, in showing that religion and government will both exist in greater purity the less they are mixed together. And here is his paraphrase of the Establishment Clause. Congress should not establish a religion and enforce the legal observation of it by law, nor compel men to worship God in any manner contrary to their conscience, or that one sect might obtain a preeminence, or two combined together, and establish a religion to which they would compel others to conform. There's more,
but
quite a lot more.
So where are you getting this not a Christian nation crap, Eve?
I don't know. It's just being silly. But his thoughts on the matter don't really seem even remotely ambiguous. They're so at odds with this stupid proposal that one begins to wonder if the proposal's just an elaborate Poe. Maybe the Kootenai GOP is engaging in some sort of clever satire. However, not all members of the local GOP are so convinced. Precinct 52 committee member Bjorn Handeen has expressed interesting concerns about the measure. He says it puts the government in a position of deciding what is Christianity, and that's not a position I want the government to be in at all. He was planning on voting against the measure, but felt that some might vote for it simply because they don't want to be seen as anti-Christian. But he said, you don't have to be anti-Christian to think it's a bad idea to mix religion and government. Good for you.
This hippie pinko.
I know. President Madison would agree with you. If the measure does pass or has passed, it will then go on to the state Republican Central Committee, and Handine worries that if that happens, then I imagine there would be lots of legislators that take a look at this and maybe they want to move forward. So that's Idaho at the county level. What's going on in the state legislature? Who are these legislators who might want to vote for this idiotic measure? Well,
oh God.
Recently, there was a House State of Affairs Committee meeting concerning a bill that would ban doctors from using telecommunications to prescribe abortion-inducing medications. The bill is allegedly intended to protect women's health by making sure they're actually seen by a doctor or something. But it's really a way to limit women's access to abortions.
Because Idaho is a doctorless frickin' wasteland.
Okay. It's one of those states that no one lives in, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Dr. Julie Madsen was testifying against the bill, explaining that other procedures which she feels are higher risk than chemically induced abortion would not be banned by the bill. And she specifically mentioned colonoscopies in which the patient swallows a small camera. Republican Vito Barbieri, seen here, next slide.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. He then asked a question that made Twitter ecstatically happy.
Oh my God.
Can the same procedure, he asked, then be done in a pregnancy, swallowing a camera and helping the doctor determine what the situation is? Now, as we all know, in med school, the final exam in all anatomy classes involves singing an extended version of the song Dem Bones, including the crucial line, "Esophagus connected to the uterus." Wait! That's not it at all. Dr. Madsen was forced to point out, without giggling, that when women swallow things, the objects don't come out their vaginas. If women work the way Barbieri seems to think we work, abortion would actually be quite easy.
Just stick your finger down your throat.
Exactly. All the women need to do is stick her fingers down her throat and barf the baby up. Of course, the downside would be that morning sickness would become a truly tragic and heartbreaking condition. And it could really lead to a diminution of the population.
Oh my God.
Barbieri has since explained, or since claimed, that his question was rhetorical and meant somewhat sarcastically. My point was rhetorical, he said. I got the response I was expecting. I was leading her to it. He wanted, he claimed, to point out that her comparison was not a valid one and that she was comparing apples to oranges. I believe he actually says that. So it's not entirely clear if he's another lawmaker who simply has no idea how women work, like the one who thought we work kind of like ducks and can't get pregnant through rape, or if he was just trying to belittle the medical expertise of a female emergency care physician and assuming that his was greater. Either way, the combined efforts of Barbieri and the Kootenai GOP has resulted in a resounding win for Idaho in the category of stupidest politicians of the week.
Oh my gosh, they really did go off the charts this week. It was an impressive show. Well done, Idaho. Well done.
Good job, Idaho.
Yeah.
God.
You're making Texas look good.
Yeah. That's
all right.
That's some funny stuff.
Okay. Well.
And didn't they ultimately decide against That they voted for the bill?
The abortion one?
Yeah. Because they're qualified.
Yep.
Sad.
There seemed to be a argument over whether Justice Thomas or Justice Scalia or both would agree with this on Twitter. Somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I assume. The other update I can see is Nathan uploaded his ghost photo of me to Is It True? And it said no go. Oh, Ellie has a good question. By any chance, does Kirk Cameron live in Idaho?
Hey!
Let's ship him there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't think he does, but that's a good question. All right, so that's the end of our regular stuff, I think. So we need to finish up our regular segments and stuff. So let's see, trivia. There were two people who got the answer to my trivia question, one of whom thought he didn't have it. Howard actually said, I'm trying to find the tweet. He said, Howard Skep Review Howard said, I got nothing. Chiropractic. I'm stumped. Yeah, you were right, Howard.
Yeah, good job.
Good job,
Howard.
Flail. And actually, someone else got it right, too. Mark Price, but he was a few seconds after Howard. So Howard got that right. And did anybody get yours right, Bob?
Hardin DR got it right. It's Call of Duty World at War Zombie Level.
Oh.
This is the
Blue
long
has
play.
just arrived.
Huh?
Blue has just arrived.
Yay.
All right. And as for announcements, another reminder, we've announced it before, but the Skeptical Classroom Symposium on March 6th and 7th in Flagstaff, Arizona is coming up. What is it, a week from this week?
Thursday. We're going to head out. And then...
Well, a week from this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 10 days away, or 8 days away. If you want to learn about how to teach critical thinking, and you can get to Flagstaff by March 6th or 7th, get down there. Bob and Eve and Virtual Skeptic Emerita Sharon Hill will be there, along with some other very cool folks. And we'll have a link in the show notes. And a new ebook is out, which Bob edited. It's called Magic in the Classroom, Using Extraordinary Claims to Teach Critical Thinking, and it was published today by the JREF, James Randi Educational Foundation. It's available free for download at all your finer internet locations, and it has contributions from Bob and Eve and many more folks. So I definitely want to take a look at that.
We're fun.
That sounds like good
There are a
stuff.
lot of really cool essays in there.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome cover.
So,
Awesome cover.
You could try putting it in Is It True?
Oh, you totally should put it through Is It True?
The cover photo?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Although it will have been resaved, but it's a real photo. That's a real thing.
Yeah, all right. Who's got a book?
I got a book.
Okay, Bob?
Your memory feels like a single resource, but this is an illusion. It's composed of subsystems that work in concert to give you the sense of being whole and in command of your past life. Procedural memory, sometimes known as muscle memory, is for physical skills, skiing, riding a bicycle, shuffling a deck of cards. Declarative memory deals in facts and is further divided into semantic and episodic memory. Semantic memory encodes meanings, definitions, and concepts. Episodic or autobiographical memory encodes experiences from your unique personal past.
Eve?
It has long been recognized by archaeologists and anthropologists that certain individuals in a variety of cultures from diverse time periods and geographical locations have been accorded different treatment in burial relative to other members of their society. These individuals can include criminals, women who died during childbirth, unbaptized infants, people with disabilities, and supposed revenants, to name but a few. Such burials can be identified in the archaeological record from an examination of the location and external characteristics of the gravesite and other things too.
All right. And here's mine. Al wasn't a goofy kid anymore. He was a middle-aged man with a family and a thriving career, and a band, and a crew that depended on his continual creativity for his livelihood. Al was in it for the long haul, taking the long view. He understood that he'd be performing each new single hundreds of times in concert, and he didn't want to be saddled with a song he couldn't stand. Bob?
Sleights of Mind by Stephen Macknick and Susanna Martinez-Condi with Sandra Blakesley. This person.
Yep. Yeah, they've spoken at TAM and other skeptic conventions.
And are they both at I thought they were in. One's in Phoenix, and they're both at the Barrow Neurological Institute, I guess, in Phoenix.
Okay. Eve, what was your book?
Mine is Deviant Burial in the Archaeological Record, edited by Eileen Murphy. The skull is buried at the bottom of the grave.
Scary.
Deviant Burial.
Mine was Weird Al, the book. It's a coffee table book all about Weird Al with lots of cool photos. And of course I opened to a page that doesn't have a photo. There we go.
Fun.
Lots of stuff.
Is he going through Atlanta?
Yes, in June, I think, at Chastain Park.
Lots of fun.
Yep.
He puts on a good show.
Yeah, we're finally getting Honest Liar, too.
Okay.
It's coming in April. They just, if you go look on the Honest Liar site, they just announced a bunch of dates. It's going to open wide, as they say, in New York and LA, and then a whole bunch of other cities in a month or two. So if you haven't seen the James Randi documentary, The Honest Liar, that's coming your way. All right, are we done?
I believe we are.
Are we done? Maybe I can get this theme song played without...
We did a show. Way to go, us.
Yeah. All right, well... Oops.
Okay.
Yeah.
I started dancing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to get everything queued up and get ready. All right. So here we go. Okay. The Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of What'sTheHarm.net, Skeptical Humanities, Brian Gregory, who is not here, ICBS Everywhere, who is also not here, and Doubtful News,
Who is also not here.
who is also not here. A lot of people who are not here are involved in this production. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com, and
we hit an hour exactly.
I know.
By Musicant and is used with permission. I run a tight ship.